Hi, I'm Mina Malik Hussain and you're watching The Coffee Table, and today we have one of those shows where it's so much important information, and today we're going to be talking about polycystic ovary syndrome, which is commonly known as PCOS. And I feel like it's something that so many people seem to have these days, and there's a lot of conversation around it, and we thought that it would be really interesting to have two wonderful doctors come onto the show and kind of explain what this syndrome is and what does it mean to have it and how do you manage it, and why you shouldn't panic if you do have it. So I'm really, really excited today to be welcoming on set with me Dr. Yusuf Lateef Khan, who is a consultant and a professor of obstetrics and gynecology. He teaches at Rashid Lateef Medical College. He is the founder member of the Society for Gynecological Endoscopy and is a member of the ART team at the Life Clinic at Hamid Lateef Hospital. And joining us from Islamabad over the internet is Dr. Shehnaz Nawaz, who is the Associate Chief of Obstetrics and Gynecology at Shifa International Hospital, where she is also a consultant OBGYN, of course. Dr. Shehnaz received postgraduate training in Belfast and has practiced in Saudi Arabia and UK for many, many years before coming to us in Islamabad. So, welcome to the show, Doctor.
Thank you.
It's very nice to have you on set.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. So let's sort of, begin at the beginning, Dr. Saab. So when we talk about PCOS, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to, what is this syndrome?
What is this syndrome? Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank the Indus and you, of course, to bring in this hot topic right now, because this is one of the things when the patient comes to me and she's totally devastated. Oh God, I've been diagnosed with PCOS. What should I do?
Yeah.
So the first thing we tell them is relax. Sit down, calm down. So it is out there and we do agree with that, but it's not one of the things which can't be managed.
Right.
So the take-home message in this is the management, I would suppose. So it is manageable, and it is like diabetes and hypertension, which we till now haven't found any cure for that. It's the same with the PCOS.
Right.
Not that everybody has that, but a few of them would require to have some kind of treatment for them, not all of them. So that's a good part. It's not necessarily that you're going to need some treatment for that. There is only about, if the incidence, I go to the literature, it varies from country to country. It is between 2 to 26 people will have it in 100. Females are going to have it out of 100. And out of all these, only 50% would be requiring some treatment or some management plan. Rest will be kind of fine.
Okay, well that's not too bad.
No, not at all.
I want to talk about management, slightly later on. But so what happens in the body when you develop PCOS? What is happening in the body?
Basically, it's one of those things we all know what insulin is.
Yes.
In the body, it's basically for diabetes, we have kind of correlation with that. In this, what happens is that the function of the insulin is once the glucose goes into the body, the insulin comes out and it pushes the glucose inside the muscle and other part of the body to bring it down.
Okay.
So in these scenarios, what really happens is that resistance to insulin does happen and the glucose doesn't go back in.
Oh, so it's just kind of floating around in your body.
Yes, it does. And as a result, more insulin comes out. And as more insulin kinds of popping out, it has kind of all these vicious circles which kind of starts off, which can be gaining of the weight, which can be hair on your cheek, is what you call that, thinning of your hair.
On your head.
On your head.
So hair in the wrong places,
Yes.
Hair on your face and not on your head.
And then, of course, leading to subfertility.
Yes.
And finally, very hardly, that's leading to cancer as well.
Yes, uterine?
Uterine. Yes.
I've done my research. I have notes.
You've done your stuff.
I have notes. So mismanaged or sort of ignored PCOS does have serious implications.
Yes, it does.
But most people who are diagnosed with PCOS, a lot of them don't require a lot of treatment or sort of minimal management.
Minimal management, and it's more of a simple things to do, not anything like that you have to do. But one of the important things is they have these long-term implications as well.
Because then it's a lifelong condition,
It's a lifelong condition
that has to be managed.
It's managed like diabetes and hypertension back.
Yes.
So if you take your insulin or drugs properly for blood pressure and diabetes, you are fine.
Yeah.
The most, I think the appropriate example would be Wasim Akram.
Yes.
He's been diagnosed with diabetes and he's been on insulin and he played international cricket for 20 years.
Yeah, that didn't stop him.
That didn't stop him.
Yeah.
So that's kind of motivation for all the PCOS patients to become
And
the
you know,
Semachrome.
he doesn't smoke cigarettes, so that's also a plus point.
Yes.
Dr. Shahnaz, hello. Dr. Shahnaz, I feel like Dr. Yusuf has given us a really interesting, information about insulin resistance that I also kind of want to unpack. But the name of the syndrome is polycystic ovary syndrome. So can you tell us a little bit about so one has ovaries, and now there are these cysts on them, and there are multiple cysts on said ovaries. So what's going on? Where are these cysts coming from? Like what's happening?
So, I actually will have to go back. I'll take a step backwards.
Excellent.
So, the thing is that one has to understand what's normal and where this abnormality kicks in. Okay?
Yeah.
So, and the tragedy is that a lot of women don't even know their own anatomy and physiology of their body.
Yeah.
So what happens? So, we've got a uterus, a womb.
Yep.
And then there are these two ovaries, okay? So the ovaries, the job of the ovaries is, it's like a basket of eggs for women.
Yes.
And they carry their eggs in that, okay? And these eggs actually are regulated, and plus these ovaries they produce hormones, predominantly a hormone called estrogen, and then another hormone which kicks in after the egg is released, which we call as ovulation, and then the progesterone gets released from the ovary.
Huh.
There's another hormone which is called androgen. It's like a male hormone. Now, don't get alarmed, all women out there. Women do carry we do produce male hormones.
Yes.
But they're in a smaller quantities,
Huh.
unlike men.
Yes.
So the job of the ovary is to keep the menstrual cycle, a monthly menstrual cycle.
Yes.
And this is regulated by a higher function in the brain. There's a section in the brain which controls it. So there is this control. Okay? So at puberty, this whole system gets alive.
Yes.
It becomes live.
Activated,
Just like yes. So that gets activated. So once that gets activated, so there are tiny cells inside, tiny follicles. Follicles are tiny fluid-filled cysts inside the ovaries, and it has a little tiny egg in it, which we can't see from a naked eye. You can only probably see it in a high-power microscope. So these cells are actually protected in these fluid-filled cavities. These cavities or cysts are surrounded by cells, and there are further cells inside the ovaries which produce the estrogen, progesterone, and the androgens, the male hormones.
Yes.
Now, whatever happens in the ovaries, genetic influence, other influences, the ovaries, the number of these fluid-filled cells increase. So when the number of these fluid-filled cysts increase, there's an excess production of the estrogen.
Right.
When there is excess production of the estrogen in the body, the brain gets a false message. Now remember, it's a false message.
Yes.
Oh, ovary says, I've got enough, my body's got enough of estrogen, I don't need further stimulation from the brain. Okay? So the brain does not produce the right level of stimulus to the ovaries, and the ovaries keep producing the estrogen, and we have the polycystic ovarian syndrome in women causes a heightened level of estrogen in the body. And a lower level of progesterone because ovulation does not take place because of the imbalance. And because the progesterone gets kicked in after the ovulation or egg release.
And if the ovulation isn't happening, then the progesterone is just going to stay at that level.
Exactly. So it doesn't increase in size. Now, what does estrogen does to our body? And now, estrogen, and plus there is an increase in polycystic ovaries. There's an increased production of androgens, male hormones.
So there's too much estrogen, and there's there are too many androgens. So these are like in excess of these two things, hormones.
What do the male hormone does? I'll start with the weird things first. So the male
we love weird things.
I know. So the male hormones, what it does, you get these facial hair, body hair, receding hairline, thinning of hair, acne. So this is our women have to suffer that. And furthermore, the estrogen levels increase, so you do not get egg production, and you do not get a regular menstrual cycle. So your
Yes.
menstrual cycles are delayed.
Affected.
So that is the pathophysiology. That's how the disease, affects a woman's menstrual life and her reproductive life. Now, once you understand this phenomenon, then you know how to treat it. Now,
Yes.
the other thing to remember is that these androgens, especially in obese women, androgens in the fat gets converted to estrogens as well.
Oh.
So excess level of male hormones also increase the estrogen levels in the body.
Wow.
So it is a kind of a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle. One leads to another, and insulin resistance takes place, and there's a heightened level of luteinizing hormone from the brain, which also increases the insulin resistance. And so there is this thing that in the body that affects you not only physically but also psychologically, because women are having these changes in their facies, their body habitat,
Yes.
and so they feel psychologically depressed. Anxiety
Yes.
levels are heightened in
Quite
these
right.
girls. And so it is quite, and in our clinic, and I'm sure Yusuf is going to agree with me, that we get these young girls and mothers getting worried, okay, we didn't have this kind of a hair growth, and why my daughter is having that.
Yes.
So this is a whole setup, and mind you, South Asian girls, the incidence is higher, much higher.
Really?
in South Asian girls.
Why do you think that
definitely.
is?
So it is because we have more insulin resistance. So Asians have a higher incidence of type 2 diabetes and
Wow.
hypertension, high blood pressure. So South Asian women have the highest incidence of polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Wow. So that means they aren't just kind of panicking, hey, Dr. Yusuf? It's not like it seems to be happening more. Or do you feel like it used to happen previously also? Like Dr. Saiba said that, moms come into clinics saying that we didn't have this, but now our daughters have it. But so can we say, well, I'm not tying myself up in knots also, but do you feel like the previous generation did have it, it just wasn't diagnosed?
The diagnosis of this PCO, if you correlate with history, when I go back, is actually correlated with the ultrasound machine coming up as well.
Oh.
So what used to happen was that you go to a radiologist, and there was no radiology done at all. So it was all clinically diagnosed.
Okay.
But now what happens is that you walk into a radiologist, get an ultrasound done. By due apologies to all my radiology friends, if they can't find anything, they'll just write PCOS, and that's it.
Oh dear.
But that is one of the things which we have to, then the patient comes to us and they're crying and they're kind of fighting with us because something went wrong and I'm going to die and I'm never going to get married and do that.
Yes.
So as a result of that, it's a vicious circle, as Dr. Shinaz was saying, it all starts off. So it's been happening before, I would say that. It's been happening before, but because now your minds are set, it is all because of PCO. Now we have something to blame on it, then everything happens.
Right.
So
and these symptoms are also, you can, for example, if you're diabetic, you can have weight gain and insulin resistance. Or if you have some other condition that could be causing, pigmentation or skin tags, or, it can be kind of overlooked.
Yes,
for
of course.
something else.
Of course. People come to me and they say, I've recently been diagnosed with a PCOS, and because of PCOS, I'm getting this irregular periods.
Yeah.
If I ask them only one question, how much weight gain have you gained for the past 6 months or so? And if they say we've gained about certain amount of kgs or pounds, so I tell them, that the reason you're gonna not having the periods and everything else is because of your weight gain. They come back to me and tell me, no, Dr. Saab, my period stops and then I had the weight gain. Otherwise, the other way around.
Right.
And the only simple thing which they have to do is lose weight and they're back on the track and it's all normal.
So it's not necessarily in every case when if you have an irregular period or you have weight gain or, sort of these symptoms that happen with PCOS, it's not necessarily true that they're being caused by PCOS.
By PCO, yes.
Oh, okay.
So you have to be very clear about that. It's not only the PCO to blame for.
So a diagnosis has to be made very carefully.
Yes, and it has to be made with clinical, as well as some biomedical tests which has to be done. So again, coming back to my radiology friend, please don't write PCOS. You can just write the suspicion of PCOS. You can correlate clinically or whatever they can that puts ease on the patient.
Quite right. And we want to take a very quick break here and sort of come back to address why we are panicking about PCOS. Stay with us. We'll be back in a minute. Hi, welcome back to the coffee table. We're talking to obstetricians and gynecologists Dr. Shehnaz Nawaz and Dr. Yusuf Lateef Khan about polycystic ovary syndrome and why it's terrorizing people all across the world. So, Dr. Yusuf, before the break, we were talking about how diagnoses have to be made very carefully. So there has to be a combination of your ultrasound scans and sort of a consultation with your gynecologist as well. And so do we know why PCOS happens in people?
The only thing which they have put their finger actually on it is the genetic genes in the family.
Oh.
So that's one thing which nobody can change.
Quite right.
So if it's going to be there, it's either your mother, your siblings, or maybe your aunts. If they have it, there's a possibility that you might also have it. But there's no guarantees, but there's possibility.
So there is a possibility, but it doesn't mean that you will definitely guaranteed get it.
No.
But do you find that even in people that don't have a family history of it, now again, this is complicated because maybe they do have a family history, but nobody was diagnosed, so, you don't know.
In this case, what really happens is that maybe the family had it, the mother or the siblings have it, but they kept their weight under control. They kept their lifestyle good enough. So that was fine. So it didn't kind of pop out. And they lived with that, but they were perfectly fine with that. But in your case, maybe, and the patient comes in, maybe she has gained weight and all the vicious circle, as Dr. Shehnaz pointed out, it all started off. So maybe they had it, but it didn't kind of showed. They had any implication. But for you, unfortunately, it kind of had this implication on you.
And Dr. Shehnaz, do you feel like that's because our lifestyles have changed generation to generation? So even if you had sort of PCOS lurking, but you ate healthy and like Dr. Yusuf says, you kept your weight under check and generally got more exercise. And I feel like my generation is now more sedentary. We eat a lot of preservatives and junk and, lots of nonsense. Do you think that?
Well, Mina, you're absolutely right. The lifestyle has changed drastically. It is, we definitely do not live the life that our previous generation did. So there's a lot of carbohydrates in our diet, which is a killer, to be honest. It is a killer, and I mean it. It is, we have a touch button to our hands, drive. We don't walk, we drive, we with a touch of a button, you do things. And so life has become easier. But having said that, life has not been less stressful. Life has become more stressful. So when you're stressed, your male hormones get released. Along with your steroid hormones from your adrenals, adrenals also produce a certain amount of male hormones. So these women are more, competitive in life. You're competing all the time, exams and profession, and you want to do the best in every field. So these women, previously women would do their roles as maybe housewives or homemakers, and then but these girls are exposed. So, and furthermore, our diet has become more refined. Sugars we're having, so that might have a role to play. What Dr. Yusuf said about genetics, yes, actually in 50% of patients with the polycystic ovarian syndrome, they found a genetic link, either mother or sister, etc. But the rest of the 50%, they did not find a genetic link. And furthermore, they haven't even identified a specific gene to say that it has. So a lot of work is going on to find out what is it that triggers polycystic ovarian syndrome. And actually, I was reading somewhere, and it was an authentic, it is a very reliable source, and it says that the condition is going to worse in the coming years, in the coming generations.
But why?
Yeah. So this is something that is we do not know, to be honest, because this generation, a lot of people, earlier diagnosis with ultrasound scan, but certainly women are more hairy and their periods are more delayed, and they are having genuine problems. If you do go to a college class, go to any college, girls' college or any college, and you find and ask the women, ask the girls, a significant number of them would tell you that they are having problem with their periods.
Yeah.
It's the bread and butter of a gynecologist. Infertile couples, a significant number of infertile couples, Dr. Yusuf will agree with me on that, because he sees a lot of infertility patients, is that they will they have this as anovulation. Not having the egg released is a problem with polycystic ovaries. So they have this problem.
Yes.
So how we are going to fare in future, I think it's quite grim. The other thing is that there is, I don't know whether you want to talk about management right now, but there is hope at the end of the tunnel. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
That's very promising.
Yeah,
that's very
and that is if women, so we have to educate, and I'm glad you took on this this topic, because all these young women out there listening to it, I know definitely all these young women listening to this program out there should know that if they keep a healthy lifestyle, so physical activity, I find Pakistani women are not very active.
No. It's true, it's difficult, and it's difficult to exercise in spaces where you can go for a walk and things like that. It's quite tricky. I want to talk about management. We'll cycle back to it in just 1 second, but I'm glad that Dr. Shehnaz, you brought up infertile couples, because that I feel, Dr. Yusuf, and you do work with the Life Clinic as well at Hamid Latif. I think that the main anxiety around PCOS is infertility, because I think when we think of a missed or a late or a skipped period or irregular period, then one immediately thinks that, oh my God, will I get pregnant? When I want to get pregnant. But this is something that happens to, and I suppose it doesn't matter whether you're married or unmarried, to have that anxiety.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine to have that anxiety, but I would like to share one of the stories which one of my colleagues told me a couple of days back, was that a patient comes to her and she kind of goes through the history. She's about 45 years of age, and she said, why didn't you get married and whatnot? She said, about 20 years back, I was diagnosed to have a PCO.
Yeah.
And till then, that day I decided I'll not get married because I'll never get pregnant. I'll die of cancer. And this is the end of the life. And she went into depression. And it's a real fact. And she was in acute kind of depression and misery.
Of course, what a horrible thing to be told at a young age.
In a young age, you can't just...
You're just doomed now.
That is it. This is the end of life. You just jump off the cliff, and this is not on. This is not on at the stage in 21st century where we are standing.
That's not true at all. Like, even if you have PCOS, you can have babies.
Of course, you can have 12 babies, I say that. You can have a cricket team, why not? But yes, of course, you'll probably need some help, you need some guidance, and that's about it. It doesn't have to be very high-tech things to be done. It's just simpler things which you can be helping, taken care of all the way to your end of life. So it's not going to be, the earth's not going to open up, the sky's not going to fall, even if you're diagnosed, but going to the right place and getting your management done. And it is as simple, you can't believe that it's simpler as you can say, is if somebody asks me what is the management.
Yes, so I'm going to ask you, what is management, Dr. Yusuf?
And for me, the simpler thing is if the patient has a high BMI, she has to just lose weight.
Right.
And how much to lose weight? She just has to lose about 10% of the weight. And believe me, 90% of her problems will go away. She will have ovulation, she'll have regular periods, and she can conceive naturally as much as they want.
On a sort of side note, even if you don't have PCOS, but if you have irregular periods, does that mean that you'll have trouble conceiving?
Not really. People do conceive even they don't even have periods, like the ones who are kind of lactating mothers.
That's true.
And they're not kind of using any kind of contraception. they're not lactating, or they're not ovulating, I would say
Or
that, or
even-
they're not, but they come to me and they're pregnant again.
I'm sure they're not very happy about that.
That's another side of the story.
That's another tangent to another tangent. So, Dr. Yusuf, what is management of PCOS? Like, where does one begin with management? So we have weight loss,
Yeah.
which
One is
immediately addresses a lot of
But
problems.
the one management will depend upon the desire and the patient wishes.
Right.
So it has to be across the board. If somebody says that she would like to have regular periods, then we put them on some contraceptive pill, which makes sure that she will kind of have regular periods every day. If somebody comes in, says that I want to conceive, then there's a fertility plan for her, very simple ones. And if some says that I'm just want to kind of not happy with my figure and everything, then of course the diet plans and the weight loss and everything, they come in. So it's not going to be across the board.
Right.
It will vary from patient to patient. And as my father says, we don't have to treat the disease, we have to treat the patient.
Yes.
So we need to sit down with her, talk to her, what her desires are, what her expectations are.
Right.
We get them cleared and tell them. As I said, this is one of the disease which can't be cured, but managed. The important question is managed. And management plan will depend upon her wishes and whatever she wants.
Yeah.
But it has to, and these patients, they unfortunately go into depression. They start eating more.
Yes.
And then again,
Because all these anxieties, that, what am I going to do? What about my future? And like Dr. Shahnaz quite rightly said that, you change, your body changes, you can't seem to control it, and it's awful.
Yep.
And then depending on what stage of life you're at, if you want children, you don't want children, you're married, you're not married, so then management plans also, I imagine, you'd have to tweak them as
the requirement of the patient is to that. And if we have to say them that we have to tell them, let's suppose, lose weight, the important take-home message again would be, then that thing would happen that the whole family has to adopt to that. It's not going to write, you're going to have your KFCs and McDonald's, and she would be sitting in a young girl having a couple of her salads and whatnot.
Yeah.
These food things, they are on the click of your phone.
Quite, yes.
In the middle of the night, she's going to just order something and it will just pop up and she'll eat it.
Yeah.
So so everybody has to. You don't need to keep those delicious sweets in your fridge.
Yeah, and then don't eat them.
Yeah.
But that's really important. That this is something that the whole family needs
has to adopt to it. For her sake, for your sake, and everybody's sake.
Quite right. No, I think that's really important, and that's a really sort of something really to consider, because nobody should feel like they're alone in this journey. So do you feel, Dr. Shahnaz, do you feel like there's still these kind of taboos around talking about PCOS openly? Because, there always seems to be this kind of feeling that, women, and it's that women's private business, and meh. But it's not anybody's private business in the sense that this affects families, this affects couples, it affects, how you, and again, it's a lifelong condition to have to manage, and it doesn't seem fair that one should have to do it all alone.
Certainly not. Certainly not. It is not. It shouldn't be a taboo. And I think people are I think I'm seeing more people are more open about it. They're talking about it. There you are. You're talking on air, on telly. So this is a great change. I know it is a great change, and and women are coming up to us and they're talking openly and freely about their polycystic ovarian syndrome. And actually, I've seen even couples coming, young married couples. They come and they say, "Look, this is the problem," and I haven't seen. But then, having said that, I'm exposed to a certain clientele in a private sector, maybe out in the government hospital. You will see that there is a taboo attached to it, and I'm sure there must be now. And I think when we talk about it, the taboo will be less and less.
Quite right.
There is the estheticians, and their practices are flourishing because of this condition, because women are going for their hirsutism, excess growth, acne, all this stuff. The dietitians are very much, nutritionists. They have a role to play. But more than that, I think what and families have, as Yusuf has alluded to, that the state also needs to do something about it. I remember in UK, when I first went, at every till you will see these wonderful, packets of sweets and chocolates and, but they have taken them off, because as you would pay the till and the child will say, I want that, mommy, I want that, daddy. And then you would, out of embarrassment, sometimes you'd buy things for the kids.
Quite right. So there's a sort of shift there's a sort of shift in this also, that there needs to be, we need to make kind of certain lifestyle choices which affect the well-being of the entire kind of family unit. Much to think about. We're going to take a very quick break here and come back soon to this fascinating conversation. Stay with us. Welcome back to the coffee table. We're having a very interesting and I would say extremely important conversation about PCOS with obstetricians and gynecologists, Dr. Yusuf Lateef Khan and Dr. Shahnaz Nawaz. And we've been talking about how PCOS, we don't know how you get it. There might be a genetic factor in there, but once you have it, it's just a question of managing it and throughout your life. And I suppose at some point when you've had your babies and you don't want to have your babies, do you still need to keep managing it?
Yes, of course.
Oh,
because of its long-term implication. Like we were talking about the diabetes, the heart diseases, the blood pressure, and everything else. So it is kind of you have to live with it.
Right. And it's not a means to an end that I'll treat myself till I have children, and when I'm done having children, then
children
bye.
is not just one part of it.
Very important.
There's other things in life you want to enjoy and do also. So to do that, so you have to be careful if it is in check. The diabetes, the heart diseases, the blood pressure, the cancer of the uterus, they're all kind of going to pop up. So for that, management is kind of a lack.
It's very important, and to kind of stick to your plan, and to also have your plan adjusted as you go along in life.
You don't have to put your guards down once you completed on the family.
Very important, sort of self-care in that respect. Now I'm curious, Dr. Yusuf, that because PCOS is causing insulin resistance in the body, that's basically what diabetes is.
Yeah.
So that's why diabetes medication is often prescribed for people with PCOS.
It's not because of only the insulin. One of the things it does is that, as I told you before, the function of the insulin is to put the glucose back out of the system, into the muscles and stuff.
Right. Where it belongs.
Where it belongs. So what happens in this case that this is not done. So for that, once you start taking these oral medication, which is kind of a glucophage, metformin, all these things it helps to reduce that insulin resistance, and as a result, the insulin can push that back in, and as a result of that, the insulin production slows down.
Right.
So as a result, all those factors, which is kind of weight gain, it kind of affect that. Most of the people with PCOS, they do come to me and ask me, Doctor Saab, give me some medicine to kind of lose weight.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite answers to them is that if it that easier, I would have taken 2, not 1. So there is no shortcut for that, unfortunately.
But is it true that because of all these hormones, sort of being in an imbalance, is it harder to lose weight?
Yes, it is. You have to actually work double the amount, There have a couple of patients come to me with a sister sitting and they say, okay, Doctor Saab, I only eat this much and she eats a whole bucket.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect her. For me, it's very hard to kind of do that.
Like you look at it and it's on you.
And I have to exercise 2 hours a day and she doesn't even move a bit. But that's all metabolism of every person.
Yeah, but PCOS does affect your metabolism, and you can be working very hard, but it's genuinely harder for somebody with PCOS to get that weight gain.
Yes.
So that's also something that's important, because I feel like this is where family support also then comes back into play, is to kind of reassure the people and be like, you're working really hard and you're making progress, and it's okay. Keep at it.
And if she's exercising, you need to exercise with her as well. So that's kind of motivation to each other. You can do a lot of outdoor activities together. It's not only the exercise, it's all kind of other things which you can help to change or modify your life.
Quite right. So, Dr. Shahnaz, do you feel like there are still, because PCOS affects women regardless of their marital status, do you feel like some people might be reluctant to take birth control as a way to treat their PCOS because, it's birth control and you're not married?
It has a taboo value, definitely. But if you explain it to the mother and sometimes fathers also are very keen
that's
to know
important.
and learn.
Huh.
And yeah, they do. I've seen some girls have come with the father and they have no problem discussing their issue, and they take it on board. And I see very few people who have refused taking the pills. Once you explain them how it works and to regulate the period and why it is so important to have the pills to reduce the risk of even ovarian the endometrial cancer, the cancer of the womb.
Yeah.
So it is and plus they know that they're having their periods, and so it is once you do explain to them, then there is that fear factor or that taboo factor can be alleviated.
No, I think that's important to sort of talk about on air also, that if your doctor is asking you to take birth control, it's okay. Like, it's not a bad or creepy or weird thing. It's something that will help. So, Dr. Shahnaz, also we talked about dietitians before. So it seems like diet plays a huge role in managing PCOS. And it's not just the weight gain, but it's also managing the insulin resistance as well. Because again, I'm thinking of the link with diabetes, and a lot of diabetics also need to manage their diet. So it is worth looking into a consultation with a nutritionist, for example, when it comes to PCOS.
Okay, so let me explain it that way. So there are two kinds of fats. One is what we call as the subcutaneous fat,
yes,
which is under the skin, like you're chubby overall. And then there is this central obesity, which is more around the waist area.
Yeah.
So it is said, and that fat is actually around the internal organs. It's called the visceral fat.
Okay.
The visceral fat, which is a dangerous one.
And is that the fat that PCOS is causing?
It is the active fat. It does all these, changes to androgens, to estrogens, and that.
Okay.
So if you reduce 10% of your total body weight by diet or exercise, then you actually get rid of 90% of your visceral fat.
Whoa, that's great.
Yeah, that's the good. So it is very important to reduce weight. Now there are women out there who have who say, look, they've done all this, they've done exercises, and they genuinely adhere to diet plans, and they can't seem to lose weight. So now there is this thing available called bariatric surgery.
Yes.
So bariatric surgery is what we call as gastric bypass or sleeve gastrectomy, where you do surgically, you do some changes into the bowel and the stomach, whereby you tend to lose weight, and it is actually very effective. And some studies have shown that actually it reverses the polycystic ovarian syndrome to normal. So even ovaries change their morphology or their shape to a normal ovary.
Wow, because they're not kind of being crushed, they're not being catered by this visceral fat, essentially.
Exactly. So the fat is a body organ actually. It's not just some fat. It's just
exactly. That's a really cool way to think about it.
It's an endocrine organ nearly.
Wow.
So it's the visceral fat that is very important. So it is recommended that if somebody has a BMI of 35 and they have other health risks like diabetes, high blood pressure, or now they're even calling PCOS as a risk factor as well. So they should actually be considering, if they've tried everything else, and it's not shouldn't be first line treatment, but if they tried everything else, then they should go for bariatric surgery.
That's
and all women 40 BMI and above, all women, even if they have no other risk factors in health risk factors, they should be considered for bariatric surgery.
Wow,
with
so
BMI of 40 and above. Yeah,
that's really interesting because then clearly
they've tried everything else.
It's not a sort of cosmetic thing where you would be like, oh, you want to be thin. Being overweight has these serious sort of long-term life implications.
They do, but I need to put this across as well. This is not the first choice of treatment.
Yes, it's not.
It's not. It's kind of one of those last resort things.
Yeah, when if you're seriously ill and just really nothing else is working.
Nothing else is working, then maybe it's there. But it should not be the first choice or the easy way out.
Yes.
Because what the stomach has the capacity. What they do is they band it so the the capacity of the stomach kind of decreases.
Yes.
But if you don't change your habits,
Yeah.
the stomach is very naughty. It will kind of go back to its
Go
normal.
back to its old ways.
Yes, and then it all stands.
Right. No, that's a very important caveat here, that we're only talking about sort of worst case, really bad scenarios where it's really an emergency in many ways.
Something like that.
Dr. Yusuf, I'm very curious because I recently read that PCOS now, or apparently, it doesn't just happen to women, but there is a kind of version of it that happens to men also. In spite of the fact that they don't have ovaries.
Yeah, they don't have ovaries. But I say we the lucky ones would say that we already have that hormones working in our body.
Right.
In a certain amount. So if they slightly get raised, yes, it doesn't have those kind of severe implications like the ones which unfortunately the female partner does have it. So for a male partner, maybe we're sitting here and talking about it 10 years down the road, they have the implication. But those who have that, then they have the other issues as well, of the diabetes as well, of this, what you call this, cardiac diseases and the blood pressure.
And hair also, like thinning hair, male pattern baldness.
Yeah.
Oh, tongue twister there. Male pattern baldness. So these are all things that when they, so basically, if I understand this correctly, for male PCOS, and of course, with apologies to my trans friends, if you have all of these sort of symptoms together, so you have diabetes or you have high blood pressure, hypertension, and the hair and stuff, so that when all of those things like in one group, then is termed male PCOS.
Not medically till now, but they will get there sooner or later.
But research is happening.
Yeah, research is happening on that.
So it seems like a lot of people's hormones are very out of whack.
Yep.
In this sort of, to sort of the gist of all of this, to me, seems like, do you think this is, again, it's something that is a sort of issue with us now and it wasn't that bad before? And so what can you, so is it just as simple as diet and exercise to keep your hormones in control?
Your body is designed to kind of work in certain hours a day. So if any machinery is kind of put on static for a while, so things going to start having wrong. So you need to understand that you have to do a certain amount of work in a day. Just lying on the sofa, being a potato couch, will not work for long.
So last question is that if you have some of these PCOS symptoms, for example, fluctuating weight or fluctuating periods and sort of, getting hairier than usual. So at what stage should one then see a doctor? When is it sensible to be like, oh, wait, this doesn't seem right?
One thing is that I would put it is when they feel they need to have some help. Let's suppose if I have to put down, let's suppose if the clothes are kind of getting tighter and tighter.
Yeah.
And you are not kind of changing your habits, but still you get gaining weight, then you need to kind of go and meet somebody.
Yeah.
There's a kind of a hair on your facial hair and you need to go in to do a laser for that. And it's a better time if you catch them early, it's easier to treat.
Right.
The more you're going to wait at home and sit it out, the more complicated it's going to get.
So like Dr. Shehnaz said, it's important to know your body and what's normal for your body. And then if something unusual is happening, go and see your doctor. Which holds true for so many issues as well, doesn't it?
It is. But do remember that it's not that anybody who has a higher BMI or is on obesity would have PCO.
Yes.
So you have to make sure there are other reasons for that as well. And PCO is, yes, there, but not in all of them.
Quite right. And we shouldn't sort of use that diagnosis as a sort of way to cover a lot of things that actually have nothing to do with it.
With that, yes.
And throw oneself into a panic unnecessarily. Thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for joining me today. Thank you, Dr. Shehnaz. This has been such an important and interesting and edifying show, and I really hope that we've, on some level, assuaged a lot of anxieties about PCOS and questions about how to manage it and how to deal with it, and the kind of support that if you have somebody in your life who has PCOS, the kind of support that you should be extending to them, because we're all in this together, and everything will be okay if we take it seriously and we look after ourselves and we see our doctor and don't Google things too much. And I can see Dr. Yusuf in the corner of my eye nodding. But yes, please don't do that. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. And we will see you next time on The Coffee Table. Bye now.